I want to talk a little bit more about color in this week's videos because I feel that for those of us like me who never went to art school, color in our crafting, in our fiber arts endeavors can be really scary. It can be nerve wracking. And I've learned a few tricks over the years. And I think one of the biggest things that people need to think about if they find color terrifying is first to think about how the color is applied to the materials you're using. Uh, so I want to start with unspun fiber at the moment. So what I've got on the table here are bats. These are, this first one is a bat that I dyed. Yes, you can take a bat off your drum carder and plop it right in a dye bath. And as long as you're careful not to agitate the bat, it won't felt. So I can rip this off very easily. So this is a solid-ish blue. And by ish, I mean that because I didn't want to agitate the fiber, I did not mix. I'm pretty sure that I laid the fiber in a tray and then I applied the color. But any minor variation in these colors is seriously not going to make much of an impact. It's going to be barely noticeable once this bat is spun into yarn. If I decide to keep it this pure color, this solid color. In this dyed bat, you can see more variation. And I think what might have happened is I made these bats a long time ago. I think what I started to do was I started to blend colors on the drum carder. And that's why you see this patch of frosted gray in here. And then I didn't mix the colors extensively before I was done with the specific project I was making. So I just tore off the bit I needed and spun it and then left the rest because any bat that I've got that I don't use up all of in one project, I can use to mix colors in later on, which is really exciting. To me, the most interesting handmade fabric, whether it's knitted or woven or crocheted or whatever, is the kind where the fabric invites you, you're struck by it from a distance and it invites you to come in closer and then you see new things in it. So one of my very favorite things to do when I'm spinning uh, is to blend colors on my drum carder so that the yarn has a a heathered appearance, or sometimes even a tweedy appearance. The tweediness is usually uh, small specks of much more higher contrast colors. Contrast in hue, in other words, the color family. So if I wanted to make a tweed out of this, I might mix in little tiny blips of red. And by blips, I mean actual cut up pieces of yarn. They can just be fed onto the drum carder like you would feed colors in, or even little cut up bits of sari silk or sari silk top, which is really bright, usually really bright, and mixes a bunch of colors. But here I was aiming for heathered colors, and you can see streaks of blue, of a brighter blue, and little tiny patches of a lighter gray, but the base color is a sort of more solid blue. And these colors were not, I probably only did one pass as opposed to two or even three passes because from probably this same batch, I blended these colors a little better. I still see some streaks in here, but not many. And in fact, if I were trying to make a colorway that would, uh, for a Fair Isle knitting project, these colors would read the same once they're made into yarn. It's just the nature of the beast. So these colors were applied from already dyed bats that just got blended together on the drum carder. And that is one of the many ways to add color to unspun fiber. You cannot reproduce this effect in any other way. If you want heathered colors, you have to mix in the colors before you spin the yarn, which is partly why heathered colors are so much fun, and I think also why they're not as common unless you're talking about a world where this is what people do. Okay, my second example here, sorry about the hand in the way. My second example here is a lovely length of commercial top dyed by a dyer called Banshee Fibers, whom I found on Etsy. And when you undo any braid or batch of hand-dyed fiber, you can get a sense quickly. It's not hard. You can get a sense of how the dyer added the color. So I'm going to guesstimate, and I'm like 95% sure that I'm right about my analysis, that the dyer laid this braid in a pan and then just applied color with a syringe or a squeeze bottle or something in various areas. What this means is that as I'm spinning, I can try to keep these colors pure just by spinning as is. But if I really want to keep these colors separate in the finished yarn, I'm going to have to tear off this dark green bit and this more whitish bit, and then uh, spin each color within this combination separately. And I'm probably going to not choose to do that because I like the way she applied these colors. And if I just spin the yarn as it comes and then ply it together, I'm going to end up with a really rich mix of colors, and it will be gorgeous. Uh, it's almost impossible, I feel, to spin a hand-dyed fiber ugly. That there might be choices that are better or worse, but it's always going to be kind of spectacular. So here's two more examples of hand-dyed fiber, and now that I look at them, I've only just realized. So I've had this one for a while. Let me say a couple of, I'm going to say months. This one is from Three Waters Farm by Mary Pagano. She does lovely things with color. And this one I just bought at the Estes Park Wool Market a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, folks, I buy the same colors over and over and over again. But I want to show you something about these two uh, lengths of fiber now that I've unbraided them. And what I want you to notice is that the minute you undo the braid or pull it out of the bag, in the case of Three Waters Farm, you can lay it out and you can see exactly how the dyer laid out the top, the commercial top, in a pan to add the colors. And I don't know how well you can see it because this is huge, but the Three Waters Farm top was laid out in a super long pan, or probably on a table, because I don't know that you could find a pan this big that would fit in your steamer or your oven or whatever. So, and you tell just by lining up the colors. So this maroony kind of color is all in a place because this is how the dyer painted across the top to apply the color. And then it shades into this sort of taupe color, same thing. And then this bright turquoise, and then this darker brown, and then this lighter brown, etc. So this was almost certainly done on a table. And after the colors had been applied, the dyer, Marianne Pagano, would have set the colors with heat on an acid dye because this is a protein blend. Now, this other braid from Apothecary, and I will put links in the description. It might have been done on a table, or it might have just been done in a pan like the one I use. That the color was applied, and then you can basically steam it or bake it in a low temp oven or whatever it is you want to do. But again, you can see exactly how the color was applied, and that gives you some it can give you some ideas about how to spin it. So if I wanted to keep these colors separate in my hand spun yarn, I could choose, and I've done this before, I could choose to pull off all of these burgundy bits and put them in a stack, and then all these brown bits and put them in a stack, and all these teal bits and put them in a stack. And then when I'm spinning, I would just grab and spin all the teal, and then all the brown, and then all the blue, and I would end up with a gradient skein. So I want to do one last example, and this braid is from Greenwood Fiberworks in Utah, and it took me a while to unbraid it. So let me lay it out, and let's see how Carolyn of Greenwood Fibers applied her color. And you just start by folding it where the colors repeat. And when I started to do that with the Three Waters Farm braid with the really, really long repeats, um, I didn't realize how long those repeats were. But all you do is you lay it out and you go, oh, this is where the colors line up. This is how the dyer dyed it. And it's, again, it if you are interested in expanding your repertoire for spinning with color, this is a really good exercise to do every time you take your unspun fiber out of the braid or out of the bag, so that you can see how the dyer applied color. But how the dyer applied color does not have to dictate how you spin that color. Yes, you have the option, and Jillian Marino's excellent videos and her book Yarnitecture explain you have the option. Nobody's going to come after you if you do what I suggested, which is to tear the braid apart and spin each color separately. And there are other things you can do as well that I want to talk about in the next video.